I've came to the realization personally that our identity and our personality is a lie, quote unquote. Our brain is not designed to make us happy. It's just designed to keep us safe. I was probably 15. I got fired from a job at a hotel. I promised myself I would own a bunch of real estate and get so rich that I could buy that specific hotel and fire that manager ultimately. We overthink because we don't want to make a decision, and we don't make a decision because we want to avoid feeling or an emotion. I just asked myself one day, if I die tomorrow, will I be happy with the life I live?
What do you think causes the quiet suffering behind success for most people? Today on the Freedom Lifestyle podcast, we are joined by Ben, who went from having lots of success in his real estate company in Miami, which he thought would give him everything he ever wanted, to then getting rid of everything and starting again due to massive burnout.
By the end of this episode, you're going to discover where most entrepreneurs are actually going wrong when it comes to having success, the inner work required to live a fulfilling life, and to finally stop overthinking, as well as the tools that Ben's used personally in his own life to find true deep meaning.
For us to continue speaking to inspiring guests like Ben, all we ask is that you hit subscribe.
And before we begin, I want you to take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. Let's expand what's possible together. Well, pleasure to have you here, Ben. Thank you. Very grateful.
So from talking off camera, obviously we know your story and we know you've got a lot of value to share. Why do you think so many people only realise that they're trapped after they've created success?
It's a good question. I can talk from personal experience, but I've noticed it's the same for a lot of people. We go through life doing things we don't realize why we do them. We never really question it. I've came to the realization personally that our identity and our personality is kind of a lie, quote unquote. And it's a mixture of three things that happen in life, like childhood events or traumas, things that happen in childhood that first form the way we think, like parents, early people who take care of us, or school. And then we have the rules of society that tell us who to be, not what to do, or what to do, not who to be. Sorry. And then we also have this other people's reactions or expectations of us, which are really mirrors of their own insecurities that reflect back on us. And then if we take this seriously, and all of these stack together, create this personality that makes us who we think we are. I found that to be completely malleable, actually. And what ends up happening is that you take on all this information, it kind of shapes who you think you are, and you end up living a life that's not really yours if you think about it. And so for me, the second part of this life, or after having shut down my business, is really the work of deconstructing a lot of things and a process of removal more than adding things. I realized that we keep adding things that make us who we are and make us live a life that we don't really enjoy, whether it can be like being in a job that you don't like, which is more common, but also maybe this is something that less talked about, is actually creating a business and ending up not enjoying the business that you do, or not understanding why you're doing this in the first place. And it's usually because especially the first business, I realized that most people start is, it happens when you are running away from something, some sort of fear or limiting belief, and you want to keep those away, and so you create this business to prove other people wrong. Rather than going towards something who you really are, what you're really passionate about. For me, it was clearly about, I was doing real estate, but it's just I had to make money to prove myself that I could, and I was into real estate for some personal story. One day I was probably 15. I got fired unfairly from a job at a hotel. I used to work in the hotel industry, and so it was so unfair, and it was the first and only time I got fired. I promised myself that I would own a bunch of real estate and get so rich that I could buy that specific hotel and fire that manager ultimately, which is kind of stupid when you think about it. But these kind of things shape, who we are and what drives us. Yeah. And ultimately, it's what got me to buy quite a lot of real estate. I never ended up buying that hotel anyways. The guy was gone. Yeah.
I love that, and it's so true. I think from our upbringing, from our childhood, and all the programming that we've had of you got to do this, you got to go to university, you got to do this to impress our family. There's so many different areas that can happen in someone's life, and then you end up questioning your own identity, and I think that's a really big thing. So I guess in terms of for you, I know real estate. I've been in the sales industry since I was 19, so I've seen that world, and I know the real estate world can be very hustle, can be very dog eat dog. I've seen all sorts of different things like that, and I know you had a lot of success in your real estate business. You mentioned that you were optimized for success is what you were focused on. Like, what do you mean? What did you mean by that? And also, like, what did that actually do to you internally?
All right. So in real estate, you can either work with, for example, first-time home buyers, or what I would call like the emotional home buyers. When you go buy your first home, there's a lot of emotions involved, and I initially started working as a real estate agent, hated it because I didn't find this really efficient. So I was like, I think working with investors would be a lot more efficient and a more efficient way to do more business, because you're just dealing with people who value numbers more than, why this house important to me. I like it, but I don't like the kitchen that much, or whatever the case may be. So I went into the investor side of the business, and then the way I grew the business was, instead of finding clients directly, it was real estate investing. So I would help people from France or French-speaking countries to buy property in the U.S. And so the way the business was built was, I found wealth managers in France, and I would pitch them on the products that we had. And then that way I had to sell one time to them, and then they would sell it to all their clients, right? There was no advertising. I would just have to network with the right set of people that already had their clients, and they would do the distribution for me. So it was a really efficient way to do it. And then the same way, we did that, I would always buy the same houses in the same neighborhoods, do the same exact rehabs with the same paints, like just productize the thing. It was almost like selling croissants or pain au chocolat. It was like, it was a commodity. And it was great for scaling, but it also had no heart, no soul, and it's just numbers and spreadsheets. And okay, who's ready for the next one? And so it allowed me to grow and to scale really, really fast. But also, it kind of blinded me on. It was a really fast train going into something that I really wasn't passionate about. And so by the time I realized, and all the stress and the employees and the things breaking, and it was already kind of too late, and it was just a lot. And I never took the time, and I think it was on purpose. I wanted to get distracted in my mind, to be busy all the time with more business, more things to do, so I couldn't think about the things I actually wanted, or the hard questions that often we don't ask ourselves, like, why do we do what we do in the first place?
Yeah, it's powerful. Like, we watched Tony Robbins a few weeks ago, and he said, like, you do things from either like love or fear.
Yep.
And I think, like, most entrepreneurs can relate to getting so many ideas and like starting new things, and actually it's like, why are we doing that? So I think a lot of people will resonate with that. So obviously you had a real like identity shift. You let go of the old you. And what did that teach you from shifting like your whole life?
It wasn't an immediate process. It was a year of feeling scared, because the way the way it happened, when I made the decision, I made it like that. So I was actually in a healthy relationship. I had a business. I shut the business down. I left the relationship. I sold my stuff. I'm sorry to everyone. I have to go. It sounds horrible, but like it was just like I essentially had a burnout, and I'm like, I have to take care of my health, and I have to take care of me, and I have to be. This is the moment for me to be selfish. I've been prioritizing other people's happiness and expectations, and the employees and the clients and everything except me, and my health was actually tanking. I was basically an alcoholic at this point, drinking every day to like just not think about how bad I felt. And so I gave myself a year to travel and write. That was the only thing that was important to me. I'm going to just slow down and figure out why I got to this position. Because on paper, I was very successful. I was, yeah, like a lot of people would have loved to be in the position, but I was absolutely miserable, and I was insecure, and I was not healthy. I was blushing at my own company meetings because I didn't feel I had a imposter syndrome, and I didn't feel like I was enough, or I still felt like I was a failure. And the more things I did, it didn't change anything. And I would keep buying more stuff and cars and houses, and just to make me feel whole, anything but to go inside. And so when I stopped completely, it was very hard initially because the business had become my identity. This became who I am. I'm a business person. I'm an employer. I take care of people, and then all of that was gone. Plus the income, plus I left my home, and so it was scary. But then I was fortunate enough to have discovered writing through the process of writing the newsletter for the business. So I enjoyed writing, but I didn't really enjoy what I was writing about. It didn't feel very personal. So I spent this year writing to understand myself and go deep. And why did I write? So I wrote because it slows down my thinking. It's very hard to write as fast as you think. So it slows it down. Second, it allows me to understand things better, because once you're able to write a coherent article about a specific subject or something that you were trying to understand or figure out, it means that you're able to teach it. And once you're able to teach something, it means you truly understood it. And so my goal was to understand my brain, why I was in this position, why I was overthinking all the time, why I made all these bad or good decisions, whatever the case may be. And I forced myself to publish something every week, just because I'm like a perfectionist. And so if I don't put a deadline to publish something, then I would just keep writing the same thing and perfecting it for eternity. And that's not the point. And I realize I really have like long answers to your questions every time.
Good, juicy.
So yes, to get back to the initial question, what was the process? Was nothing happened immediately. It was a long process of like peeling the layers of my mind and studying how the neuroscience behind overthinking and behind who we are and why it happened. Eventually, I had some people subscribe to the newsletter, and I started to have feedback, and I was sharing my story as well about burning out and kind of starting from fresh. But it was difficult because I was not really an author, but I was no longer a business owner. I was kind of in this in between. But then as I continued the process, that's when I realized that it's actually a great thing that we can kind of remove all these labels and all these beliefs. And I basically went all in. How much can I remove about who I am, what I believe? I went as far as thinking about each individual words that we use and the meaning that they have. And I realized that certain words, like, I'll give you an example. The words that we use, there's the definition in the dictionary, and then there's our personal definition. And what I realized is that, for example, the word surrendering, for me, it was a negative word. Like when I learned that word, it was in school, like in Charlemagne, whatever, surrendered to the other army, or surrendering was giving up.
Yeah.
And then I forgot why I was revisiting this word, but like a lot of these words and beliefs, I said words have an emotional attachment whenever we heard them initially, and they resonated. They created a specific emotion. That's what they meant to us, and it was crazy because when you have a conversation with someone, that's how a lot of arguments start. Is we just have a different understanding on the basis of what we're talking about, and so oftentimes it's not an argument about ideology. It's like, what are we even discussing in the first place? And so just peeling back the beliefs on as much as I could. And once you have kind of a clean slate, you get to this place of raw consciousness, if that makes any sense. And then from there, you're able to build whatever you want and become who you want to be. And this has been the process, my process for the past couple of years.
I love that. And you mentioned as well, and I know you do a lot of writing around this topic, and writing has really helped you overcome this area. But you mentioned then that you used to overthink a lot in the business world. And I think overthinking is probably something a lot of listeners can relate with.
Even if you're not in business,
well, yeah.
I think every human being overthinks.
Well, yeah, like, you know, oh, did I say something wrong? I'm overthinking about my business, overthinking about identity. That's something I've certainly done before of me personally. So I guess my question to you is, why do you think we all, or not all, that's assuming, but why do you think a lot of people in this world are overthinking? And what have you done so the listeners are able to apply to be able to start, you know, overcoming overthinking? Because it's like we watched Tony Robbins the other day, and he said, once you're in your head, you can be, you're dead, you know, because your mind can just start overthinking everything. So I'm curious, with over the last year of writing and exploring yourself and literally leaving your income, your home, family, friends, to go on this journey of like self-discovery, like, what have you discovered to really help yourself when it comes to your tendency of, say, overthinking?
It is a good one. So there's a lot to it. So much so that I was actually able to write a whole book about it. It's called Unfuck Your Thinking.
I'm
And
excited to read this.
the premise was like my thinking was really fucked up. And so I was trying to unfuck my thinking. And so that's just
Great
what I call it.
title.
But I think to really sum it up, to make this really easy, we overthink because we don't want to make a decision, and we don't make a decision because we want to avoid a feeling or an emotion. And it's a process of avoidance. And so if we really think about it, every time we overthink, we already know the answer. And we just add different scenarios or options to make the brain feel safe to not make this specific decision. Most of the time, we know the answer. And it's just, it's always kind of the same thing. We're avoiding a difficult moment or a difficult conversation just to feel safe, because the brain, here's like the biggest thing that I've realized, like that our brain is not designed to make us happy. It's just designed to keep us safe. Yeah. And there's a couple of things that happen inside the brain, like cortical columns. These are like tiny decision makers in your brain, and they every time a piece of information comes, they determine if it's true or false, like the information that's coming. And the brain is designed to work like a computer. It wants to be able to make decisions with the least processing power possible. So it's going to try and find shortcuts. And there's a second thing in the brain that's called the RAS, the reticular activating system, which is like a filter. Because there's so much information coming, the brain's like, okay, we can't intake and process all of it. So what this filter does is like, we're going to agree on what's important, and what's not important, we could just like filter out. And the brain doesn't really focus on it. I'll give you an example of that. When you, for example, you buy a car that's a yellow car or a BMW, like all of a sudden you keep seeing them everywhere, just because like you told your brain, like, this is important right now. And the really cool thing is, like, we can train that. Like, we can tell the brain what to focus on. Yeah. The question was on overthinking. Why do we overthink? I think it's just because we do that on purpose to feel safe rather than to be uncomfortable and just do the logical thing that oftentimes is really obvious in hindsight.
Yeah, we can all be guilty of that. And it's something actually we spoke about in the talk that we had last night. And it was about almost having like that voice in your head that's not necessarily you. And I think sometimes if you can call it something or like almost laugh at it, it will stop you just listening to it all the time. So yeah, it's a great way of looking at it. It can detach you easily from it. So when it comes to success, obviously, like you said, on paper, you were very successful. It's what most people would view as success. What do you think causes like the quiet suffering behind success for most people?
Well, entrepreneurship, it's different for you guys because you guys are very fortunate to do this as a couple, and I admire you for that. But even as a couple, like you become this one like identity of people who were going through entrepreneurship. And we were having a conversation before recording that you prefer going to places where you can find other entrepreneurs to be able to have like conversations, because it at the end of the day, it is lonely. There's more non-entrepreneurs than there are entrepreneurs, right? And so we have a different schedule, and like by definition, it's a little more lonely than when you're just going to a job, and then going to a job is kind of like going to school. You see the same people every day, and you have your little circle, whether you like them or not. Like it's a routine that keeps you feeling, safe. And so there's a lot more on predictability, and we spend a lot of time making difficult decisions and stressful, and we often do them on our own. And most of the time, we can't really talk to our friends and family if they're not doing the same thing. So it's really, there's just like a little disconnect.
So you mentioned a minute ago as well about loneliness, and I think that's not only are entrepreneurs, a lot of entrepreneurs are experiencing more loneliness. The hustle mentality of like just lock yourself in a bedroom and an office and just work all day is very popular on social media. But then actually a lot of people that live a 9 to 5 and quote unquote like more of a standard normal life are also lonely. There's a lot of loneliness going on. And you mentioned that for you that you left your family, your friends, and I know you mentioned that not everybody all agreed with it. I've certainly experienced that. I know Ellie has, and I know a lot of people have experienced that. If someone's listening that's experiencing that that loneliness, or that from like their friends or family not understanding the route that they're going on, like what personal advice have you got from that topic of how you've been able to overcome that, and what has it taught you, going on that journey of like, because I know a lot of people want to do something, they want to try that business, or they want to leave the job or that relationship, but they stay in it just because they're scared of that loneliness, or they're scared of what everyone else is going to think.
I think there's a really important relationship. It's probably the most important that we never think about. It's the relationship with ourselves, especially for entrepreneurs. That's usually one that's avoided on purpose, whether consciously or unconsciously, because like I said earlier, most of the time we're running away from something, from like fear or insecurity, and so we want to stay busy and do, like, have. Oftentimes it's about having control, like feeling like we're in control. We want to control everything, and so it's hard to control your schedule if you have a boss telling you when to come to work, right? Your income and a bunch of stuff. The relationship with yourself is really important, because I don't know, like for me, after a year in the process of writing and spending a lot of time by myself, I'm typically like I wouldn't say I'm a loner, but I enjoy spending time with me. But at some point, I was extremely lonely, and I had to go really deep and meet myself. And that would be like previous versions of myself, or younger versions of myself, and actually have conversations with, like, I'll give you an example. Like, once you discover why you are a certain way, most of the time it's something that happened when you were younger, and a decision was made by little you that protected you at that time, and it helped you survive. And that 14-year-old boy, for example, made a decision that helped you survive at that time. You're still acting the same way today. It's not helping you anymore. And so when I say the relationship with yourself is like accepting, who you are. And for example, like sitting down with, it sounds weird, but like actually sitting down, having a conversation with a younger version of yourself and saying, thank you for protecting me when you did. It was really useful. Right now, I don't need it anymore, but thank you so much, and just like this is the type of relationship with yourself that I'm talking about. And once you have those, and I know I feel a lot more whole and complete. And funny enough, once you're selfish enough to have a really deep relationship with yourself, you can have much better relationships with other people. And that includes like couples and stuff like that. I know for me, it was very difficult staying in relationships just because I didn't love myself. And until I learned to, and so I was looking for external validations and like everything, right? Once you find that everything is within you and you're comfortable and you actually enjoy the person who you are, you're much easier to love, and you're a much better lover in general. Like, is that personal relationships or business or just,
Exactly. You've had a massive shift. And I guess I'd love to sort of compare what your version of freedom, like what you thought it was when you were in real estate, buying the cars and in the relationship and everything compared to what it is now, like just to see how that shifted for you. So yeah, freedom before and freedom after for you now.
I was looking for financial freedom. That was the most important thing for me. And I just wanted to have enough money that I didn't worry about money, but I didn't know why. And so I accumulated a lot of it. And with the money, I accumulated things because I need it. It's always, you need stuff from outside of you to make you to feel like the holes that, and they're just holes because you never address them. And so you accumulate things, and then these things make you happy for a week or 2 weeks. And then you have to find the next thing and the next thing and the next thing until at some point you realize, okay, this is never ending. There must be like a different way of, of doing things or living. And then once you address these things and you fill these holes, which were never really empty in the first place, it's just like you created them artificially by taking value out of like yourself and placing importance, outside in their outside world, whether it's money, energy, people, or just things that you're able to buy. You feel full now, so the you don't have to seek anything else than just a continued feeling of inner peace. And then I don't know, it's the weirdest thing. I'm having discussions with you guys or the stuff that I write about or with myself or with other people about, if I heard myself 2 years ago, I would just slap myself in the face. Like I just I've changed so much that now I value just like being at peace with yourself and like having conversations with your younger self. That's I it's still weird for me to accept having these conversations because I'm so far away from who I was before. Like life gets so much easier once you actually do the inner work, and it sounds very cliche, but it's real. And I've revisited all these cliche things, and I realized that at the end of the day, I think we just want closeness with each other, like to feel human connection, and we want to have a good time. Like we're not here for who knows for how long we're here, and we yeah, just having a good time and enjoy everything we do a little more.
In terms of for yourself as well, you obviously was the it sounds like for you the breakthrough moment come from having a burnout in work, because then that's made you like just stop. And burnout is extremely common. I've certainly burnt out before, and I know a lot of people have experienced that. I guess for you, like with what you know now, if you were to go back to your younger self before the burnout, what advice would you have given him to? So if someone's listening to this that may be in burnout now or on the verge of burnout without actually like, did you realize that you were on the verge of burnout, or were you just so like fixated on like the financial, the money, you mentioned like getting the success, the cars? Were you so focused on that you didn't even realize you're on a verge to burn out? And with everything that you know now, like what advice would you give to your younger self to have completely stopped that burnout from happening?
I don't think I regret it happening because everything I did up to this point led me to where I am now, which is a very happy and peaceful and chill person, which I was not before. I did see it coming, and it's not that I just let it happen. It's just it was too hard to give this all up. It's like I think we have a burnout because it's a question of like alignment or disalignment, that the things we do in relative to who we are, who we're supposed to be, and the further it's like going on the wrong train, right? And if you go into entrepreneurship, for example, and it happens to be successful, like it's the wrong train going really fast opposite to where home is, but hopping off the train like sucks
Yeah.
because you're no longer in movement, and then you end up like, okay, now I have to walk back to where I have to be originally, and I have to give up like this whole thing. But the longer you stay on that long train, the longer it's going to actually take you to go back to home, right? And home is who you are. And for me, it was a necessary evil or bad time because it's my biggest fear. I just asked myself one day, if I die tomorrow, will I be happy with the life I lived? And the answer was like a big fat no. And okay, so if that's the case, like it would really suck. And then I thought a lot about like not dying necessarily, but the end of life, and having a conversation with my 90-year-old self and kind of ask questions about it just makes decisions a lot easier, because then you think about the worst thing that you can have on your deathbed is a life full of regrets and things not tried. That's what helped me in the transition process. But to avoid the burnout, I think it's having honest conversations about the things that you're doing and whether it's aligned with who you are, understanding why you're doing the things that you're doing, and it's okay to like be a little misaligned. Like it's very hard to find like your purpose in life. It's very hard to know what you're meant to do. Usually you can only do that once you try a bunch of different things, and that's why I think it's great to try a bunch of different things. But then when you commit to something later in life, um, yeah, I guess nothing is fixed. And like, even though the things that I do today, I could see myself doing these for the rest of my life, which is great, but it might change. You know, like maybe in 5 years I'll do something completely different, and I'll be happy for all of it. I don't think the change is gonna come from burnout. It's gonna come from something I really want to do, and where this new passion or interests take me. How to prevent burnout? It's a hard question for me to answer, because without the burnout, I don't know if I would be where I am today. I don't wish it upon anyone, but that being said, like I actually thought about this a lot, and the misalignment question, because that I think that's the most important thing, is how far are you from living the life that you're supposed to live? And I came up actually with a set of 10 questions that are kind of counterintuitive and very deep. When you answer them, you're able to see very quickly how far or close you are to what you're supposed to do. If you can share these with you guys, if you want to put it in the show notes or whatever. I want to do it. They're really they're kind of uncomfortable questions, but by the end of it, like you know pretty much, okay, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. And I don't share them too much because like most people are not doing what they're supposed to do in life. You know, most people are in jobs that like they just accepted, okay, this is my life, and then I'll do this job, or I'll stay in this relationship, or I'll stay in this town even though I don't enjoy it, because it's uncomfortable to make the change. But I guess once you see it, like it kind of puts a fire in your eyes, and like, okay, at least you know how misaligned you are, and then you know you can go on like different steps to figure out what how to kind of change your life and get what you want.
Very powerful. I'm excited to answer those questions myself because
We love the hard questions, don't we?
I love a hard question. I mean, as a coach, it's all about questions, isn't it? Questions are so powerful. So let's say someone has got over the burnout. You know, for you, that was taking a year out to write, and that was very healing. Let's say someone's gone through that healing journey and is ready to almost start that new life. What one piece of action or advice could you give that person right now who's ready to take, you know, that new life on? Like, what would you say to them right now if they're listening?
Yeah, the very first thing that I think is really important is this is a something that I did before deciding what I wanted to do. This is why I told you initially that I took a year with no goals, no pressure. I just wanted to write to like understand myself, and travel just to open my mind a little more. And through that time, I wrote what I now call a hate list. And the hate list is basically anything that you do in your life currently, whether it's at work or in your relationship, or anything that you do that makes you want to stab your eye with a pencil, like the things that you really hate, right?
Yeah.
And the goal of this exercise is to have a really clear parameter in which you want to stay out of. And it by that process, eventually you're going to have that parameter, right? And then as long as you stay out of all the things you absolutely hate, I'll give you examples so it makes a lot more sense. Some of the things for me were meetings, big company meetings. Having employees was a big one. I loved my employees, but it was just a lot of mental space and responsibility. Like we had 11 employees full time and 37 contractors. It's a lot, always. And so I didn't like, or I hated rather, having other people have an impact on the results that I'm ultimately going to be responsible for. So since we did a lot of stuff out of state, I had out of state teams that were doing stuff, but ultimately it was my company, and if they fucked up, it was my fault, right? I wanted to remove that, and so it didn't tell me exactly what I wanted to do, but it gave me a very clear parameter on what not to do, and just writing became that thing that fit, and that so I don't need anyone else. I can write on my own. I don't need teams. I don't need employees. I don't like the result that I'm providing is solely depending on me and my effort. And so writing down that hate list allows you to kind of find what you want to do and make sure you're not going to burn out from it. And then I've found that things kind of naturally happen once you have nuclear clarity on the things that you hate.
Yeah, no, I'm going to do that.
Yeah, no, I think it's really important. I think for me, my pet hate is pointless meetings. Yeah, I'm like this is a waste of time. Like
Waste of life.
It's a waste of life. Yeah, life is
For everyone involved.
For everyone involved. Life is too precious, and I think that's why I think going on that I guess entrepreneurial journey where you don't have an office, you can be anywhere in the world. It's such a blessing because it gives you that. Certainly for me and you, and obviously for yourself, it's given us so much. So we're constantly coaching. Like we're always asking each other powerful questions. We're always reflecting. And I think it's because we've got the time to be able to do that. And I think that's where the busy world, people aren't actually giving themselves
just on autopilot, aren't
constantly
up,
bang.
work,
It's like constant fight or flight. People are going from one thing to the next, traveling here, traveling there. Like it's a lot. And I think that's the key is to have that loneliness, have that silence, ask yourself the deep questions that people aren't actually doing. So this conversation's been extremely powerful and I think it's going to really make a lot of people think. And I'm excited to do your 10 questions myself because I always like to go deep and do the uncomfortable work because that's where the truth lies. And it's not always easy, like you mentioned. However, it's also not easy staying out of misalignment. So you've got to choose your hard ultimately. But I guess in terms of for yourself, Ben, someone, listening to this podcast, like why does this conversation matter to them?
I don't know what matters to them. And just like it's fun. Well, it's not that I'm trying to be selfish or anything, but the way I write for myself.
Yes.
Like, so when I write something, some people find it a little harsh because that's how I talk to myself, right? I write either to my previous self to teach things that I wish I knew, or sometimes I write to my future self. But and it's the same advice here. Like I don't know anything. I just know what I did, what works for me, and what if it resonates, like great. What I do know is that the life on the other side is just like a completely different experience of it altogether, and I feel it important for me to share the stuff that I learned, because if a previous version of myself is able to to see it and take advantage of it, of the little bits of information, then so be it. I'd be happy. It's a complete night and day the way I live, the way I experience life, and especially it's not just doing the hard things and then I don't know how to explain this. Doing asking the hard questions and ripping away everything that you thought was true about you and starting from a clean slate, then it's almost magical, and I can't even explain how things just happen now without effort. I used to be always grinding and looking for new things and new employees and more sales, and now it sounds weird, but I don't do what I don't want to do, which ultimately means I do what I want to do, but it's not the same kind of energy. It's a pull more than a push, right? And I find that beautiful, and things just seem to be happening for me, and I don't know how it's called, but I've noticed that if there could be one takeaway, which is really important for me, is how we approach things in life. And I know you probably have a lot of entrepreneurs listening to this. And one of the biggest shift for me was to stop asking how initially, and just stop asking how altogether. Usually, that's the first question let's say you want to start a business, and you're like, okay, how am I going to get customers? How am I going to make sales? How am I going to find the product market fit, whatever. I now only focus on the what. Like, what is it? To have absolute clarity on what I want to do. And in order to do that, we just talked about the hate list. So you get clarity on what you don't want to do, what you don't want to be, who you don't want to be, which gives you clarity on what you need to do. And then you attach a really strong why to that. Like, why is it important to you? And once you have that, the how figures itself out some way or another. And it's really hard to connect the dots looking forward.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, they do connect. Like everything I've been doing, if I didn't start writing the newsletter for my company, which was previously done by a SEO team, and I was like, wait, there was something in me that told me I think I can do this better. And through this process, I just discovered like this deep passion for writing, even though I didn't enjoy the subject. And and then it became the thing that I do full time. And it was impossible for me. I didn't know I was going to become a writer. Or do this full time. It's just like it's impossible to connect the dots looking forward. We just got to trust that things will happen once you get nuclear clarity on who you are and what you want to be.
It's all about trust, which can be the hardest thing in the world. But like you said, everything you've done up until now has led you here. And at the end of the day, you've just got to enjoy the journey, because otherwise you get to the destination and you can look back and be like, well, I was just stressed the whole time. So trust, I think, is my biggest takeaway from this conversation. And hearing your story is like living proof that, it leads you to where you're meant to be if you trust.
And just to touch on one thing as well, because obviously I think it's quite refreshing actually to meet and to talk to a writer, because I feel like the way the world's going, and I can take responsibility myself as well, is writing is becoming less and less and less. And
AI.
Because of AI, AI is writing books now. AI is writing content. AI is obviously doing a lot of things, and that takes the human, I guess, human touch and thought process and authenticity. And obviously, yes, it's a more efficient and it is quicker, so there's benefits to that. But I guess I'm curious to know your views and thoughts on AI, especially when it comes to business and writing, and what the future of and where the future of writing is gonna go, and what your mission is with writing.
Do you remember what I told you earlier? I think for me it doesn't matter. I'll tell you why. Who do I write for? I write for myself. So why would I use AI to write to myself? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it just doesn't. Like it depends on the intentions of writing. So it's hard for me to answer the question in the way you want me to answer it, because for me it truly doesn't matter. I enjoy writing to understand myself better, or to learn something. I genuinely enjoy the process of writing on my computer. I enjoy the process of writing in the journal in the morning with a pen and paper, just because it slows me down before, and it teaches me to start the day slow. So I don't know. I don't really see a problem with that, and I do use AI a lot as a thought partner. So I have a lot of conversations back and forth just to expand on the ideas that I have. This is how I personally use AI. But if I want to write to myself, and it makes no sense for me to just, hey, write about this, because then I'm not learning anything. And the whole point for me is to understand myself better and learn. So does that make sense?
No, it makes 100% sense. And that kind of does.
Nice to hear.
You mentioned about my question in terms of the answer. That answer is perfect, right? Because it's ultimately my take from this all, for anyone listening as well, is to try write more, but for yourself, because I think, like you mentioned, it helps you slow down, it helps you actually think, and I think the world where a lot of people aren't thinking anymore.
My hot take is, I firmly believe people don't need therapy. Yeah. They just need to hear themselves think. And writing is how you do that.
Exactly.
That's why it's so important to me.
I'm going to write more.
Yeah, for sure. Like we write we
journaling.
write our gratitude. You write it quite a bit because we're not really setting alarms anymore. So we're really actually like remembering our dreams a lot more. Like, because I think when people always alarms, fight or flight, they don't have time to think about what their dreams were. Whereas we reflect on our dreams and we learn through it. And I think, you write out your dreams, we write out our gratitude, and it's such a nice thing to do, to just give yourself that time to do it. So I think that's a great message for anyone. And I think that could probably be one of the solutions to preventing burnout, ultimately, because you're slowing down, you're calming yourself down, but you're getting your thoughts out rather than overthinking in your mind and just ignoring it, and then probably like drinking alcohol or drinking coffee to like push it away. Give yourself the time to ask yourself the 10 questions that you mentioned, do some deep work, write your thoughts. What are you grateful for? And just really start to get out your head and get more into your heart more. And I think there's going to be a lot of answers there for you listening. So it's been an amazing conversation. Very unique, which I always like. We're going to be running up a nice exclusive Q&A inside the community, inside Freedom Lifestyle community with Ben, so you can get any questions that you want to personally, because these questions that we ask, a bit like you with writing, of course, our mindset always with podcasts is we want to make sure that we're always giving as much value as possible. But ultimately for us, we're going to be asking questions as well for ourselves, right? So it's like, for anyone listening that's got questions that they want to ask Ben, there's an opportunity to do that in the Q&A. So you can join the community in the description, and we can also add the 10 questions in there and the details about your book, because I think
I'm
that
excited to read it.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'll ask you how I can get it in Mexico, but we can find a way.
Love that. Well, Ben, it's been an absolute pleasure. Very grateful, and you're off to Colombia.
Yes. Enjoy Colombia.
Thank you.
And I'm sure our paths will cross again.
For sure.
Oh, for sure. I'll see you guys in Bali in a few months.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Hasta luego.